President Obama came out 2 weeks ago and said that he was in favor of marriage rights for same-sex couples. Now, everybody knew when that happened that it was a watershed moment for that as a civil rights issue and in President Obama's presidency. But nobody knew exactly what the practical political impact of that announcement was going to be. Coming up this hour on the show tonight, we've got some new, actually quite shocking evidence of what that announcement by President Obama has done already. You do not get a 36-point polling swing in a 2-month period on very many issues in this country, but we just got that. The details on that, which is pretty shocking, are just ahead. But, one of the weird news cycle footnotes to the president's announcement on same-sex marriage was that it caused the Washington Post newspaper to hold their big scoop about the Mitt Romney gay bullying incident from when he was in high school. That piece was ready to go on May 10th, but the Washington Post knew that that story was going to get a ton of attention. And Mitt Romney viciously bullies gay teen. And they apparently thought that it would be too provocative to have that in the paper on the front page alongside historic step by Obama on gay marriage. So they posted the Romney bullying story online the same day as the Obama story, but they did not put it in the physical paper until the following day. And frankly, like the Obama announcement, the Romney bullying story is another one of those things where we don't know exactly what the practical political impact is going to be, if any. I mean, it may have no political impact at all, but indelibly, it is now one of the things that voters know about Mitt Romney as a person. It is a hard thing to forget once you learn something like this about someone. And it is not a flattering thing. According to the Post's reporting, as an 18-year-old, Mitt Romney objected to the appearance of a, quote, soft-spoken new student 1 year behind Romney, who was perpetually teased for his nonconformity and presumed homosexuality. This is how the Post reported it. Now he was walking around the all-boys school with bleached blonde hair that draped over one eye, and Romney wasn't having it. He can't look like that. That's wrong. Just look at him, an incensed Mitt Romney told a friend in the Stevens Hall dorm. A few days later, Romney's friend entered the dorm to find Mr. Romney marching out of his own room ahead of a prep school posse, shouting about their plan to cut the student's hair. Romney's friend followed the boys to a nearby room where they came upon the younger student, tackled him, and pinned him to the ground. As the student, his eyes filling with tears, screamed for help, Mitt Romney repeatedly clipped his hair with a pair of scissors. After the Washington Post published that story, Mr. Romney's campaign initially denied that the incident had ever happened. Then the candidate stopped denying it, but laughed it off, said he didn't remember it. And even though he didn't remember it, he was sure he did not think that kid was gay. He apologized if anybody was offended, and he laughed, and he said it was just a prank. Character issues are the great unquantifiable in electoral politics, right? Everybody thinks it's very important, but it's hard to define. And frankly, who knows if this is the sort of thing that's going to determine how people vote in November. But you have to admit, even if you think it's not going to be determinative, a story like this can't help. If you're running for president, you can't tell people to unlearn this about you, but you really don't want to remind them of it if you can avoid it. It casts the same kind of political pall as the story of Mitt Romney strapping the dog to the roof of his car. Mitt Romney once put the family dog in a kennel on top of the family station wagon and then drove that station wagon all the way from Boston to Ontario in Canada. The dog got sick on the top of the car. One of Mr. Romney's sons once told a reporter about how Mr. Romney pulled over, turned a hose on the sick dog, and then put the sick dog back in the kennel on the top of the car and got back on the highway for more hours of highway speed driving. The pinning down the screaming, crying student and cutting off his hair because you objected to it story, and the strapping the dog to the roof of the car and heading out on the highway story, these are not going to be what the campaign for the presidency is about. But if you are the Mitt Romney campaign, you know that those stories are out there, and you really, really do not want to remind people of these stories. Do you want to see the Get to Know the Human Side of Mitt Romney video that his campaign put out a couple of days ago? Nobody asked them to do this. This was not in response to a query of any kind. They just wanted to put this out there so you know what's on Mitt Romney's mind. Watch.
My daughter-in-law, Mary Romney, Craig's wife, this is her oldest son, Parker, and it was crazy hair day at his school today. He's 5 years old, and she says in her note that she used Borden's Elmer's glue and egg white to get his hair to do that. So I sure hope it comes out. But it's awful cute. And my guess is he won at Crazy Hair Day at school today. Quite a kid and quite a mom.
I sure hope it comes out. If it doesn't come out, you're going to cut it off for him, sir? Maybe you and some buddies? I mean, this is unforced. Don't remind people about your school days hijinks concerning hair that you disapprove of. I mean, yes, this is a totally harmless video, right? This is a totally harmless video unless you happen to be the guy about whom the Washington Post 2 weeks ago put out a story, totally damning story about your character that has all of the same touchstones. Today, here was Mitt Romney at a campaign event photo op at a school. At one point, Mr. Romney was helping a group of students with their assignment. What was their assignment? Make a sentence that uses alliteration. What was Mr. Romney's contribution to the sentence with the alliteration challenge?
That work?
Can you see it? Dogs what? Dogs drive Douglas dizzy. Dogs and driving? Seriously? I don't know why Mitt Romney doesn't get more credit for his gaffes, for being gaffe prone, right? The Republican Party right now is trying to create the impression that Joe Biden is so gaffe prone that he's a bad vice president. Mitt Romney ought to get more credit for this. I mean, bringing up the combination of dogs and driving and his disapproval of non-normative student hairstyles, when these are the two indelible character-related stories that voters might just have in their minds about him, these are not the most important things in the world, but these are totally embarrassing, unforced errors from a candidate who gets all of this credit for being super disciplined and on message and not making unforced errors. Sometimes I think that credit is not earned. This ought to be a sleepy time on the campaign trail. Heading into Memorial Day weekend, the Republican primary essentially all wrapped up. It's still going on in a way that isn't generating all that much attention, except when, say, Ron Paul wins Minnesota, and then everybody has to pay a lot of attention to it, if only to avoid reporting it. Congress is sort of barely in session here and there when they bother to find the time. This ought to be a really sleepy time in politics, but actually it has not been. President Obama in particular has been ratcheting it up a new gear every day, really aggressively going after his opponent on the economy, on what he says are distortions of his own record as president, on the newly controversial but still totally central issue of Mitt Romney's time in business.
Since I've been president, federal spending has risen at the lowest pace in nearly 60 years. This other side, I don't know how they've been bamboozling folks into thinking that they are the responsible, fiscally disciplined party. They run up these wild debts. And then when we take over, we got to clean it up. And they point and say, look how irresponsible they are. Look at the facts. Look at the numbers.
You know, I've still got my day job, and so I'm working hard solving problems, but you know, I've got to pay attention to what the other side's up to. And my opponent in this election, Governor Romney, he's a patriotic American. He's raised a wonderful family. He should be proud of the great personal success he's had. I mean, you know, he has been extraordinarily successful at the financial firm that he helped put together. But I think he's drawn the wrong lessons from these experiences. He seems to believe that if CEOs and wealthy investors like him are getting rich, that the rest of us automatically do too.
Governor Romney says that his 25 years in the private sector gives him a special understanding of how the economy works. Now, if that's true, I got to ask, why is he running around with the same bad ideas that brought our economy to collapse this last time out? I mean, either he thinks that they're going to lead to a different result this time, or he's hoping you won't remember what happened the last time. And I'm here to say we were there. We remember. We're not going back. We're moving forward. That's why I'm running for president again.
Now, the Romney campaign strategy up to this point had been that they wanted to talk about the economy, the economy, the economy, the economy, every day the economy. That's how they were going to stick it to President Obama. They assumed that President Obama would not want to talk about the economy, he would want to talk about other things. President Obama now seems very, very comfortable talking about the economy, and he is the one bringing it up. And because of that, Mr. Romney is now going to Plan B, trying to change the subject. Over the last 2 days, Mitt Romney has been trying specifically to change the subject to education. Now, before these last couple of days, he has had some trouble communicating with voters out on the stump on that issue.
So I was just curious, if elected, what you would do with regards to college tuition, whether making it easier for me and my classmates, or, with regards to that.
It would be popular for me to stand up and say, I'm going to give you government money to make sure to pay for your college, but I'm not going to promise that. What I'm going to tell you is shop around, get a good price, and I do feel this. I feel that if you're willing to serve your country in the military, for instance, that's a place where we're going to say, yeah, hey, we'll give you help.
To be clear, neither Mr. Romney nor any of his 5 sons served in the military, but that, other than shopping around, looking for a good price, hoping you can find something cheaper, that has been the only concrete thing he has offered as a suggestion for somebody who can't afford college, because obviously they were irresponsible enough not to be born to rich parents. That was Mitt Romney talking about education back in March. He has not had a good line on it so far, even when he gets asked about it. But now, as of this week, he's got a whole new rollout on the issue, with a big speech yesterday and the photo op with the alliteration sentence where he volunteered something about driving in dogs today. That event was in Philly today. When he was in Philly, actually, Mr. Romney was greeted with a bit of a welcoming committee led by that city's Democratic mayor, Michael Nutter, and the local district attorney.
As governor, Romney balanced his state budget as required by the state's constitution. Unfortunately, he did it on the backs of the students. By his second year, Mitt Romney had already forced Massachusetts schools to take the second largest cuts per pupil in the country. Those cuts forced schools to lay off thousands of teachers, along with librarians and even police officers. Not exactly a record as a job creator. When I showed up here this morning, these people were booing me because they thought I invited Mitt Romney to West Philly. You know how we is. You know how we is. Let's get it straight. I did not invite Mitt Romney to 58th Street.
Well, you got the video now.
But you have every right to be mad at Mitt Romney.
I used to live in West Philadelphia. I know exactly what he is talking about. Inside that Philly school, Mr. Romney also faced some headwinds from some of the people his campaign set him up to meet with while the cameras were rolling. Watch.
A number of folks said, well, we need smaller classroom sizes. That'll make the biggest difference. I said, let's compare the average classroom size from each school district with the performance of our students, because we test our kids and we'll see if there's a relationship. And there was not. So just getting smaller classrooms didn't seem to be the key.
I can't think of any teacher in the whole time I've been teaching, over 10 years, 13 years, who would say that they would love more students would benefit them.
Right, of course.
And I can't think of a parent that would say, I would like my teacher to be in a room with a lot of kids and only one teacher. So I'm kind of wondering where this research comes from.
It is hard to imagine that Mr. Romney is going to run for president on the basis of saying that class size ought to be bigger. If you can put 20 kids in a classroom, why not 30? Why not 50? It's frankly more efficient. It's marvelous. I don't think he's going to run on that. The Obama campaign went right after the Romney campaign on this today. And as he gets face-to-face confrontation from teachers he's meeting when he's supposed to be rolling out his big education ideas, as the Obama campaign goes after him on this, it'll be interesting to see whether or not the Romney campaign sticks with education as something they're going to run on, and sticks specifically with his idea that bigger class sizes are cool. But if they really do want to change the subject to education, if they want Mitt Romney to be running on this, and that's what they've tried to change it to this week, their other big, new, heretofore untried idea that they are putting forward, the one that really does have a contrast with what President Obama has done, their other proposal besides larger class sizes, is this, from his education white paper. He wants to repeal the change that President Obama made to student loans. They want to get rid of that. Mr. Romney will repeal what President Obama did. Do you want to know what that was, what President Obama did to student loans? This is one of those things that sounds like a finicky little change, but it turns out to make a lot of sense and save a ton of money. And if you're a person who had a lot of federally supported student loans,